Well, I am going to go ahead and introduce our session host for today, Robin Kelson. Robin is AERO's interim executive director and was previously an AERO board member for 2 terms. Based in Whitefish, Montana, Robin also owns the Good Seed Company, whose mission is to reestablish the community practice of selecting, saving, and sharing seeds for common use, and is a steering committee member of Free the Seeds as well, a program of Farm Hands Nourish, providing community-powered opportunities to build a sustainable and resilient future through real seeds, real food, and real skills. Robin, I will go ahead and throw it over to you for today's session. And again, a big thank you to everyone joining us today.
Great. Thanks, Madison. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get us started. Oh, look, I almost clicked leave. That would have been embarrassing. Here we go. Share. Yeah, do you guys see a nice big picture of AERO reimagined? Yeah. Yep. Perfect. Great. Okay, and I'm hoping you all can hear me well. So, welcome to AERO Reimagined. So our session today is just going to be an invitation for reflecting on where we are today. We're going to start with reflections and gratitude, and then move into a vision we'd like to share for an opportunity that we see AERO can move into moving forward. And then we wanted to explore AERO Reimagined in 2020 and beyond. These are interesting times, as we all know, and I think there's an opportunity for us in this time to really support a new way to participate that embraces the legacy of AERO and a lasting impact of its intentions and the intentions of its founders. So our session space today is just going to be one of expansion and possibility. And I really invite us all to just take a breath, sit back, open your minds and be wild-hearted as we have this conversation. So it's really an opportunity for all of us to connect around a favorite topic, which is AERO. So I wanted to start by just making an announcement that AERO is now on the Montana Memory Project. This has been a long time coming and been the work of many people over a number of years, working to get interviews of AERO elders and AERO founders and AERO newcomers together and put that together into a collection that could be preserved and available to other people. So it's really easy to find us at mtmemory.org. We're number 3 collection. So just go to that site and click collections and there you'll see AERO. And because we are on the Memory Project, we are also part of the Digital Public Library of America. And we are also part of the World Catalog, which is accessed by universities and colleges around the world. So we're going to be available around the world. And as I said, this has been a long time coming and many people have touched this project. I was the last one to touch it. And I had an opportunity to get, close and personal with the project and all of the interviews in that last effort to get it uploaded onto this site. And I had some extraordinary experiences with it. I really invite people to take the time to listen. Most of the interviews are short, couple minutes. Some of them are longer. We have 12 interviews in the collection, and they range from some of the founders like Wilbur and Elizabeth Wood and John Brown, and elders in the history related to sustainable agriculture like Russ and Elsie and Jonah Crosby. And we even have interviews with Ricardo Salvador and Liz Carlisle and a bunch of other people. So really, it's worth your time. And there are lots of things I learned from it, and I had 2 takeaways in particular from the process. And they are really a recognition of the genius of our name, and also that what we do as AERO is we model solutions. And I think it's worth a moment to recognize that we recognize our roots with a thumbnail, just a thumbprint description of our history, because I think it provides a context for the conversation we want to have today. So just very, very briefly, particularly for any of you who were born after the 70s and may not be aware, in the 70s there was an energy crisis, and it was a real big deal. You know, there was long lines at the gas stations, there was an oil embargo, there was this cartel out of the Middle East called OPEC at the time, and it had a lot of power. And one of the solutions that the energy industry was pursuing through specifically coal companies was, let's just build more coal plants, and in order to provide cheap energy for the United States. And the area of eastern Montana and Wyoming was quite attractive for that. And actually, in policy papers, they outlined that area as a sacrifice area for the good of the country. What they didn't count on was that the folks who owned the land where they were considering putting these coal plants and these coal mines uh, didn't agree with that idea, and they banded together to form what's now called the Northern Plains Resource Council in order to fight these coal companies. And if you are not aware of the Northern Plains Resource Council, they are well worth your time. They're an extraordinary organization. They continue to be extremely effective and vocal in their intention to be stewards and protectors of our natural resources in the inland Northwest. And among the group that were working hard to fight this effort were a group of people who said, you know, we keep telling these people that fossil fuels are not the future. What if, in addition, we also show them alternatives to fossil fuels? And maybe if we can show them alternatives and show them that they're effective and they're scalable, we can shift the way they think. And those people are the folks who came together and started the Alternative Energy Resources Organization. And one of the things that I really like about alternative energy resources is that the word alternative is open hand. You know, it's providing an alternative, and there is an energy of open-handedness that was present with the organization from the very beginning. And those folks it's hard to imagine this, but back at the time, I don't know if that was just renewable energy wasn't a term, or maybe it was, there were no set terms at that time, because really the concept of alternative energies and renewable was pretty new and not at all mainstream as it is today. And the folks who started it came out of, they were young folks who just come back from colleges, many of them, and they'd been on campuses where they'd been exposed to, you know, community activism and opportunities for building community engagement through street theater and street art, and all sorts of ways of engaging community to make change, particularly given that the 70s, you know, followed on the 60s and the times of civil rights activism and anti-war movement efforts. And so they brought that mindset and that creativity to the project. And the brainchild of Elizabeth and Wilbur Woods was this new Western energy show, where they put together skits and plays, and with music and stories, they invited people to think about energy in a different way. And they were very strategic and creative, and part of their genius was they set up their events in small towns. They didn't go to the big towns, they stayed in the small communities, and they followed the rodeos and the fairs, and they met people in places where people already gathered and were familiar as gathering places. And because nobody really knew anything about alternative energy at the community level or at the government level, they used the extension services and the city council and city government to help spread the word. And because they did demonstration workshops in addition to these shows. And so together with this show that would bring engagement and allow people to relax into listening, they then put on these DIY workshops on how to build solar ovens and solar collectors. And in the words of one of the interviewees in the collection, it created a way for, in his words, long hairs and rednecks to come together and explore new possibilities. And that is another tenet of the energy behind and the legacy of AERO's work, that bringing people together to find new ways. So, you know, it very successful. They traveled all over the state for 9 years in different incarnations. They even went to Canada and to California. And a lot of the information and the um, normalization of alternative energy into the renewable energy resources that we enjoy today in Montana came out of those efforts, you know, as so the wind farms and solar farms, the renewable energy regulations and policy decisions and um, nonprofits that have come forward really was spawned by that work. And when we expanded into agriculture, what we did was provide alternative solutions to agriculture and to our approaches to food systems. So again, that open-handed alternative, that modeling of solutions. So I thought we'd take just a couple minutes before we continue to the next part of our session to look at together some of our favorite, to share. We're going to do a breakout into breakout rooms, and we invite you to share a favorite AERO memory. And remember, we only have 5 minutes, so be succinct in your communication, but share a favorite AERO memory and what one thing that you think is AERO's greatest achievement. And so in a minute, Madison is going to break us up into separate rooms. And if you're new to that, you can do it. I don't know if anyone's on their phone, but if you're on your phone, you will also go into a room. And in the breakout room, you'll have, as I said, 5 minutes to share with each other. And at minute 4, there'll be a pop-up window that comes in and lets you know that you have a minute left. And both in the pop-up window and when you're in the breakout room, there'll be a little blue button that will allow you to come back to the session at any time you want. But if you do nothing, you will be brought back at the end of 5 minutes. So again, just take a minute, relax, and share a favorite AERO memory and one comment that you think is AERO's greatest achievement.
Yeah, Robin, I'm going to go ahead and rooms, and then again, patience, or ask for people's patience in case we encounter any technology snafus. So let's see. Okay. Oh, okay, I'm going to open all the rooms. Nice. Okay. Always happy to see people returning after sending them to breakout rooms. Ooh. Awesome.
How was that for everyone? I'm going to ask a couple people to share. Can folks share out their experience or a favorite memory?
I nominate Pam.
Well, I'm Ann. I'm gonna just, and both Jim and I remember dancing and some of the best dancing nights of our whole lives with the show people from the New Western Energy show in a variety of bars with good bands, and the high from that dancing still stays with me.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Anyone else? I'm going to call on someone.
I'm willing to talk.
Hi, Pam.
Hi.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chris. The thing that I shared out, well, I have two things. It was way too short period of time. And secondly, I sort of talked about the piece I loved were the Farm Improvement Club annual meetings, where at that point in time, Montana State would not have anything to do with sustainable ag or anything to do with us. And we're constantly trashing AERO, and AERO just decided, well, we'll create our own research community. And so they did. And the reports that people shared at the annual meeting, both their mistakes and the risks they took and what worked, sort of embodied AERO, which was really, I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm not going to save face. I'm going to really try to move this body of work forward. And it was always so inspiring to listen to what people were creating. So that's my favorite memory.
That's wonderful. Thank you. How about a greatest achievement?
Well, I throw a little bit of a wrench into this, but I think we should be inspired to regain that kind of energy. And we were all young when that period occurred, and now it's time for young people to get aggressive, and we were aggressive. And so I'm not so interested in looking back as I am in looking forward. And we're really at a crisis point with a lot of things in this state, and right upon us with the pandemic, but energy right around the corner, and climate change and the rest. And I'd like to see AERO looking strongly at the future and not so much of the past. I've been through so many sessions of old timers reminiscing. I'd like to hear young folks with new ideas.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
heard that.
Anybody else on a greatest achievement?
I'll share and just say, just community, that over decades, AERO's been really good at creating community and bringing people together to identify with others. And I think that's a real strength and something that has kept people part of the family for a long time and attracts people to come in over time too.
Yeah, that's great. I'll share one of mine, which is that I came out of a conversation I had with Dave Owen as we were finishing these interviews. And he was talking about Russ Salisbury, and he said that he felt Russ was a moral compass for the organization because Russ was always asking the question, are we making a difference in the lives of people like us? And I'm pretty sure everyone who has anything to do with AERO would say that's a yes. And that's, and in our breakout session, Steve Dagger was saying that our capacity to endure is another achievement. And it seems to me that those two go hand in hand. So I'm going to move us on, but thanks for taking a minute to sit back and reflect. And now we'll be moving forward to where we go next. So I've really enjoyed this collaborative combination of conferences feathering AERO in between the MOA sessions, because it has provided an extraordinary opportunity for me to really hear over and over and over these conversations that everybody is having around the need to move our food systems forward with an urgency along the lines that Ken was mentioning just now. And I recognize, as I've been listening this week and last week, that for AERO, this has been, for us at AERO, this has been a year of deep, deep listening. We started the year, with a plan in mind to do the next level iteration of our Montana Food Economy Initiative work, dedicated to helping build more sustainable community food systems by developing programs that support community members forming relationships across the sector within their communities, and also moving forward with a program related to regulation coherency as it relates to the cottage food laws. And then COVID hit, and we got on food access calls that were developed by all the organizations working on food systems at the beginning, simply to find a way to support coherency in terms of sharing resources so that we could be effective and not duplicative or unintentionally siloed. And those started out as weekly calls, and they've now moved into a steady bi-weekly check-in session. And actually out of that, we are going to be launching what we're calling a food system summit series that uses a model that came out of MOA's efforts following the pandemic to enhance the knowledge base as it related to resilient meat processing in the state of Montana. It's been a very effective way to build a knowledge base across a large sector of the food system folks. And so we're going to do that again, we're going to do that as a series moving forward here starting next week. Some other things that came out of the food access calls were AERO and MOA moving together to start this Montana Food Providers Project. Also, what came out of the food access calls was the need and value of capturing the stories that relate to the impact to our food systems stimulated by the pandemic. But there are lots of stories that preceded the pandemic, and that if our commitment is to shift the narrative from one of cheap commodity food to a narrative of nutritional, nourishing food systems that feed ourselves individually and as a community, we need to be able to, folks need to be able to find these stories easily and accessible, so that folks who are learning about food systems and are starting to write about them in their own publications can find these stories and share them. And it's a digital version of, in my mind, of these new Western energy shows that had their shows in the fairgrounds where people normally met. So how do we provide the stories in the media formats where people normally get their information? So that's the purpose behind this story project, and we're very close to that. Has come together it's being led through a steering committee through CFAC, Kate Wright of Open and Local, and AERO are primarily running that, and we're calling it Montana Food Matters, and it'll launch probably end of this month, so you'll hear more about that coming up. We also diving deep. And we is not only AERO, but it's all the organizations that have something to do with food systems. We've dived in deep with Grow Montana, which sort of reemerged in a new format last summer. And COVID provided a great opportunity for us to clarify what are the policy issues that absolutely positively have to be brought to the legislators' attention to support what we want to achieve with food systems in the state. And it also gave us at AERO an opportunity to enhance our Abundant Montana directory through something we call Abundant 2.0. We received funds that allowed us to clean up the site a little bit and also create a market channel for listers on the site to sell direct to consumers as a way to provide a more viable and stable market channel and an alternative to the disrupted channels that were affected by the pandemic. And so all of that came out of our deep, deep listening. What I recognize from all of these sessions that are on it, and as Ken alluded in his comments, everybody who has anything to do with food systems in Montana feels there's a sense of urgency and of the opportunity present here now today to really take the work that folks have been doing for so many years, and take it to the next level. There is a unique opportunity, and we all have a role to play. It is going to take all of us. We all have different skills and we have different ways to approach the process. And there is an opportunity to support ourselves in doing this in a coherent and cogent manner that moves the whole vision forward. And we at AERO think that we have a unique role and opportunity to play here. And so what we want to do is we want to leverage on our history and our experience and our skills, our AERO-ness, and take the Abundant Montana directory to the next level so that it becomes a dynamic statewide promotional hub for local food resources, education, access, and coordination. And the key to this is this concept of a dynamic statewide promotional hub, so that there is active engagement with not only the central hub that is the digital platform, if you will, for sharing the information, but that there is this network that connects to all of the regional boots on the ground folks who are doing the work at the local level to enhance and build local food engagement. And it's a bi-directional support system that the hub can provide resources both with education and with promotional materials and with engagement to support the different sectors within the food system in having a coherent voice and being able to go to the next level in talking about local food system and their value and their impact without having everybody to reinvent the wheel. But and then as that gets expanded and built at the regional level, those new listings and those new opportunities get funneled back to the hub, and the hub can share them statewide through this virtual hub. But in addition, not only is this bi-directional network and relationship from the hub to the regions, there's cross collaboration among the regions because the resource center can help share information and knowledge and learnings and answer questions among the different regions, so that just makes it for effective and efficient and cogent and coherent communication and engagement. And it helps build momentum and engagement and awareness. And that's the goal, because as we all know, there's no time to lose. This is something that this is an opportunity to build on now. And we recognize this opportunity because of a model that's actually already built in Michigan called Taste the Local Difference. And we want to just do a shout out to Hopa Mountain, who brought that opportunity forward to us, because they contracted with TLD to have a series of conversations with folks in Montana in the food system to explore their model. And while AERO was familiar with their directory, and we'd communicated with them about that, we were really given a unique opportunity to talk deeply with Taste the Local Difference and understand the nuances and opportunities through their promotional hub model. And so we're grateful for that, because they're a successful model and they've been in business for 7 years now. And here are just some key characteristics of this model. Listers on the directory, or the promotional hub, if you will, are partners. And by being a partner, you're signing a pledge. And that, it includes some standard contractual relationship components, but specifically it's about inviting that partner to be a conscious participant in engaging and sharing and believing and leaning into the value of local food. And in addition, that engagement and that pledge guards against greenwashing. So for example, part of their pledge is that the partner will continue to make locally grown products a priority in their business, that they'll lean into moving into sustainable practices and resiliency practices in their business as they can, that they'll provide consumers upon request honest, accurate, and timely information about the growing practices, origins, ingredients, processing methods, and labor practices used to create the products that they sell. So it's an opportunity. Again, it's an open-handed alternative model for building engagement, and that is really attractive to us. And the idea of that central hub is that it provides, as I said, consistent, coherent touches that are the same throughout the state and for all of the participants on the hub, be they farmers or grocery stores or restaurants, just supporting people and having the same language and having the same resources to draw on, so that the education gets easier and the effort to be able to provide that information to members of their community who are interested is not a bar that has to be overcome, because the resources are being provided. And again, it provides branded promotion across the sectors. So here's an example of, what some branding that might be available to a grocery store retailer. And you can imagine different promotional materials, be they for the farmers or be they for the distributors. And lastly, the model also does not exclude the eaters. So remember, if you eat, you're part of the system, you're in. And what they do is they invite individuals to join the partners as local food enthusiasts. So for like $25 a year, you get to call yourself a local enthusiast, and now you're an ambassador and you get access to specific, event discounts and whatever membership benefits you can imagine. But it's a way, again, to engage everybody. And it's really a great model. And how they've made it financially viable for themselves is that it is a revenue-based model. So the services that they provide are financially paid for by the partners, and it's a scaled model. So, they base it on where you are in the food system. The closer you are to the creation of the food, the lower the entry level. So farmers, for example, can partner without any cost. They can be listed for free. Restaurants, for example, they pay full rate for joining as partners, and it's just because that makes sense in terms of your position in the food system and your access to consumers and communicators. So we want to move forward with this model. We think it is a great way for us to take the next level of what we can do as AERO in helping to really do our part to move the food system story forward in Montana. And having said that, we recognize that this is a model that comes out of Michigan, and Michigan is a very different state than Montana. So that we have some hurdles to get over in order to determine whether how to make this viable in Montana. So some of the differences between Michigan and Montana, of course, they have 10 times our population. They have twice the number of farms, and their farms are a tenth our size. And they are second in the country in terms of the variety of specialty crops that they sell. That they produce. Excuse me. They produce. I think it's 300 varieties of specialty crops. We're a slightly different story, as we all know. But we still think that's it's worth pursuing. It's not a reason to say no. I'm going to very briefly put up a next slide, and I hesitate to put it up because it's about Michigan, and I don't want anyone to have false hopes. But they have made themselves self-sustaining in 3 years, and they now have an annual revenue of $750,000, and they have contributed significantly, bringing new jobs to Michigan based on the growth of their hub and increasing the number of partners around the state of Michigan that participate in the hub, and increasing the revenue growth to those partners as a result of their activities. So those are the options and opportunities. And what we need to do in Montana is figure out how to make that happen. So here at AERO, what we're going to do is, out of these conversations that we had with a subset from the food access calls and other folks working on food systems in Montana, is identify a group that wanted to work on this project together. And we got buy-in from a wide variety of organizations. And we've divided our work into a phase 1 and a phase 2. And phase 1 is going to look at how to create the viability, determine and confirm the viability of the model here in Montana. And this is just showing the various partners that want to participate and have agreed to work with us on phase 1. And we've contracted with Taste the Local Difference to act as a consultant with us and help us provide their expertise and their knowledge, so we're not reinventing the wheel. And our goal is to have this phase 1 complete by the end of the second quarter, where we're going to identify a viable 3-year business plan to sustainability and strategize fund sourcing for startup costs, treat this as if it were a startup. And then implementation in phase 1 will be developing a strategy for implementing program rollout and expanding the reach of our local food system hub. So increasing the listers, and we'll be using our partners to help figure that out. And also those regional partners that were listed on the previous slide. I know it was quick, but they'll be working together to identify the opportunities, including resource sharing, so that we can be building and maintaining this dynamic local engagement. So we already have regional partners around the state who want to help build and make and come up with relationships and financial partnerships that will work. So we feel really strongly about having the right team together to figure this out, and we're committed to getting an answer that we think will work for Montana. And provided we can, assuming viability and phase 1 is a go at the end of it, we'll move into phase 2, which is a strategic rollout of the model as a business project, so as to build and maintain capacity and project sustainability. So we'll have financial mentors to help us with the financial management and visioning. We'll have a project team with paid staff that will be responsible for running the project, and we'll have regional partners that will be directly working with us for the mutual benefit of all. So that was a lot, I know. I wanted to just give that as an idea to bring out, and now I'm going to give us an opportunity to just sit with that and connect. So we're going to do another breakout session. And I want in that breakout session for you guys to just share one thing you learned about AERO that you didn't know before, and one takeaway or question you have about our Abundant 3.0 project. So Madison is going to send us back out again, and we'd love to hear your thoughts when we get back. Thanks so much, guys.
I'm gonna sign.
I-
There we go. Oh, I think, let's see. Room 4. That. There we go.
Oh, here we go. Sorry about that. I was muted and I didn't know. So how was that for everyone? Anybody want to share one thing that they learned about AERO they didn't know before, or a takeaway or question about AERO, about Abundant 3.0?
Get my 2 cents in again, but I felt very strongly that the program should be all inclusive from the beginning, and very definitely try not to be another means to make AERO. I think we have to remember that AERO started in desperate times, and it started from the grassroots as a basic organization, not a top-down. Also, the Michigan model is primarily an urban model. We're in a hyper rural state, and I think that we do need to work towards small is beautiful, that there's a place for all of the new invention around cities. And, you know, there are a lot of different avenues to that, including dealing with local planning. And certainly getting the other thing, you know, at the time, the universities weren't very good cooperative entity with AERO under whatever politics or power. Currently, we have a greater opportunity with our universities to be inclusive and be involved from the start. So I have a lot of, you know, I know this was started independently, and it does have a lot of thinking and programming, but I don't see that that was open and inviting. I see it as very restrictively top-down hierarchical, which is the state politic and the general way of doing things in Montana. So AERO, unlike that, was a rebellion against that. I'd like to see another rebellion against the top-heavy conservative government that we have right now. And if I'm involved, I certainly want to be more of an activist and less of a pacifist. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Anyone else?
Yeah, this is Demetrius. In our small group, Max pointed out that, you know, having a for-profit revenue model, you know, has this potential with widespread collaboration, has this potential to spin off and become its own organization, similar to what's happened in Michigan. And from what I gathered, we all thought that that's a good thing. And, you know, sustainability with a revenue model is important. And it seems like an affordable plan for the folks that would be participating and listing. And my question, and I guess something I was unclear about, it didn't seem like Michigan's program actually sells or brokers transactions, and it almost seemed like part of what I heard was that was some of the plan for what we wanted to do with AERO. I see Lindsay shaking her head, so I feel good about that. I got my answer there. Okay, so no transactions would be taking place through the website. I think that is like way more than what 2 FTE could take care of. So yeah, that is all I had.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Mark.
This didn't actually come out of our discussion, but I just wanted to comment that from some of the sessions that I've been attending with MOA, I've kind of been hearing, you know, about this chicken and egg issue, which is, you know, how do you build the desire for local food so that more people will get into the business of providing local food. And so I think that there needs to be that work, and it seems like over the next quarter we would be putting the research into figuring out if this is the appropriate way to build that local demand for local food.
Yeah, this is, you know, I think what I wanted to bring forward, if I haven't been clear in that communication, is we are eminently aware of of the need to figure out how to do this in Montana with its own unique needs, and as Ken says, hyper rural communities. Whether it's this model or it's not, when we come out of this time frame, we will have learned a whole lot more than we knew 6 months ago, and we'll have the, again, this is why we're doing this in 2 phases. The analysis and viability evaluation phase will have positive outcomes, even if we decide, this particular model doesn't work. We'll have figured out information that will support us in how can we be effective as a statewide resource that really helps do this work that plays our role in doing this work, of helping to turn the boat around and really be a clarion, call out for supporting all the efforts around the state at the community level, whether it's, one person running a food pantry in a rural community, that's not accessed by the Montana Food Bank Network, or it's a hub in Billings that's moving forward with, the Yellowstone Valley Food Hub. Everybody is working really, really hard to communicate about the value and the impact at so many levels about food systems. And if we can support by building coherency and using our legacy and our talents for convening and for communicating and for effective promotion and coordination of food access, we think it's worth the effort to evaluate a way to do that. So I'm going to see if anybody else wants to share, and then if not, we're going to move on to our next session just to keep us on time, but I'd welcome anyone else to share. And then I will also say that we will continue this conversation at our annual meeting. So you're welcome to, this is an introduction, and you're welcome to join us at the annual meeting for further discussion, or to contact me or anyone else on the AERO team for more conversation. But again, does anybody else have anything they want to say, just to share? A takeaway or a question?
Yeah, Robin, I have just a small fine point that's maybe too detailed for addressing right away, but I wanted to get at it before I forget it, is that in the model, as you're evaluating it, like you just said, and whether it's appropriate, I was wondering, they in Michigan, they were funding a lot of things like charging the restaurants a bigger price and the farmers nothing. We really need to look at that. Our restaurants are hurting around here, and we might have a total different scale of how to support that thing financially. That's just a small point on the details.
No, it's a great point. I'm giving you information that's all pre-COVID, right? It's a different world right now. So that's also absolutely right. And I didn't even think about that when I mentioned that slide, but that's a great point, Steve. We are looking at this opportunity. If nothing else, we're just, as I said, we have someone who's come before us who will guide us with their learnings, and we can take and leave what works, see what works and doesn't. But we're looking at it through the lens of Montana and the post-COVID lens. So,
Robin, can I say something real quick on this?
Yeah.
There's something I was going to say some point today, and I'll probably say it tomorrow. One of the things that struck me watching some of the previous offerings in this virtual get together and learning about people doing different things around the state is that it just hit me that the family we're part of, the bigger family we're part of, includes, Taste of Difference Michigan, includes the whatever's called in Maine, the big Commonweal Fair and community around their newsletter, which I kind of just stumbled on this summer, which is pretty amazing. We have a guest who was part of that Maine stuff that was telling me how deep that goes, Vermont. I think that Hudson Valley, there's stuff going on there that we need to find a way to somehow intercede with all these other hubs that are doing this around the country, because that's our supporting family, and that's the bigger network that we can learn from. And there's probably a way to do that that we'll figure out. But I just wanted to throw that out into the mix.
It's all fractal. Yep, absolutely. Great point. Thank you. So in the interest of time, I'm going to move us on, and I invite you to, if you've got more questions and comments and you don't, and you'd like to share them privately, send us an email or communicate with us in any way that works for you. But we'd love to hear your comments. So moving on, we are going to look at, see if I can, there we go. So the third part is looking at AERO Reimagined. And this is really just an exploration, because I feel like we have a big vision for where we want, what we think is possible with AERO, and that uses our legacy, our skills, our talents, our AERO-ness. And a really viable question is our current structure the best format for continuing? Is the highest and best use to remain a separate program and member-driven organization, or is it something else? You know, we want to continue affecting systems change in 2020 and moving forward. And within our spheres of influence, we want to change the narrative from the dominant story of cheap commodity-based food to resiliently sustainable community systems that employ alternative energy resources and sustainable agriculture practices and keep our economies local. So again, what's the highest and best use of AERO's skills in today's landscape? There's a gentleman by the name of Vu Le, who is a nonprofit and community engagement thought leader. He spoke at the 2020 Montana Nonprofit Association conference. And he makes a compelling argument that the most productive way to affect systems change today includes organizations shifting from a mission-centric focus, which focuses on the needs and interests of the individual organization first, to a community-centric one. And community-centric means shifting from an individual organization prioritizing what serves their organization first, to include what serves the community as a whole. And the community includes everyone. It includes those who fund the work, those who do the work, and those who benefit directly or indirectly from the work. It means observing the current community need and being fluid and responsive to that. So beyond looking at our community and how our community may influence our organization, community-centric means letting the community and its context and the times guide our actions for the health of the community as a whole. And I find that very attractive personally. This is, you know, Robin speaking, as being true to the essence of AERO and AERO's legacy. And so the question I am posing in this talk is, what will help AERO's legacy be sustainable and have a bigger impact to create the change that we want to make today and in the future? Currently, we are a mission-driven organization with a small staff that is grant-based for carrying out programs, and is volunteer-driven. And the possibility is to do something different. And the question again is, what will make AERO's legacy sustainable and have the bigger impact? Does that include a shift from a mission-centric organization to a community-centric one? Who might we want to include in making that shift, be they individuals, communities, and organizations? And committing to considering a community-centric focus does require being open to form. So this is, you know, the open-handedness again, because it could look like anything. It could look like joining forces with one or more other organizations. It might look like shifting our funding sources, and it might look like distributing our knowledge and resources elsewhere and letting something new come forward, you know. And it might look like shifting and living primarily through the abundant 3.0 model. It might look like yet something else. So I wanted to give us a little time to explore that together in our sessions. And as we do that, I want to give you some information about where AERO is now. You know, we actually have some hard assets that are financial assets. They include shares in timeless seeds that have been valued at over $200,000. That's different from cash flow, but we do have that as a hard asset. We've also have a bequest of land outside of Winifred. 195 acres have been willed to us upon the death of the donor. That's an opportunity that may come forward down the road at some point. And we also have, you know, a lot of social capital assets, clearly, and that's what I call our legacy. And we rely at the moment on a membership model, and it's based on a time when most of the focus of that membership was really in supporting AERO's work. And a lot of those members have gone on to support the work of the outflow of AERO's efforts and those subsequent organizations and businesses in communities where they live. And that's really as it should be. I think that's fabulous. That is the definition of a legacy. But that volunteer driven effort is flowing downstream, if you will. And it's not a problem, it's just a data point, it's information. And the question is, how do we use that data to figure out where we go next, to really honestly look at this 47-year-old organization in this new millennium, at this new time. What is the best way to enliven our legacy and allow it to live to its fullest degree in a form that is appropriate for this time and this landscape. And the current landscape is built on the work that has come before it. So we're going to do one last breakout session, and we're going to ask you to just think about, how do you see AERO reimagined? So give yourselves a couple minutes, and we'll come back. And thanks for your thoughtful consideration. Okay, well, hopefully that was a fruitful conversation for folks. We only have a couple minutes left for this time, and I just wanted to invite us to share anything that's come forward from the conversation.
Well,
I
like,
think I might have been muted the whole time I talked in my breakout session. Is that correct, Helena or Aaron? Is that true? Can someone just verify that? And if I wasn't muted, I will just shut up right now.
We could hear you.
Okay, okay. Then I don't have anything to say. Aaron could just pass it on.
I don't understand. Who's going to pass that on?
I think Aaron's taking notes from our breakout session.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I'll
I mean,
share.
you don't
kind of
have
what
to say it now. You can just say it later, so I won't take up any more time.
But it would be great to hear from you, Janet.
Oh.
Aaron, give us your breakout notes, Aaron.
Well, no, there's not how I said it was a little off topic. I just do want to tell the board that, and this, I know it's been a tough year for everybody, all nonprofits. As a member that's just a member and no longer on the board or helping staff or whatever, the communication out is pretty sparse from you guys. And I know you're working hard, and I know there are a lot of other priorities, but just I worry about that from a membership perspective, and you know, the number of hits on a website or whatever that, you know, all of that goes into. But I think it's great what you're doing, but I have to be honest, I would not have known that except for this meeting right now. And I know, again, times are tough and staff is strapped, but I think that outward communication is really critical for the reimagining AERO or imagining AERO.
Yep. Well, this is the start of a conversation. So
Yep.
I will say I'm not defending anything we're doing, and I will say it is hard to catch attention for follow-up. So that's why we're doing this session, and this is understand that at least from our perspective, we see this as a start, not an end. So here we are starting the ball rolling. Yeah, thanks for that communication, Janet.
No, and keep up the great work.
Yep. Anyone else want to share just their thoughts to start from a vision of possibility for AERO Reimagined?
Pam?
Yeah, I would. You know, the slide is a little confusing to me. And it seems as though they're talking about structure being the same as how you go about doing your work. And I think you can stay in a nonprofit structure that could be a hub of something larger about how you collaborate and work with other entities. So I think AERO's always done that. And so for me, I can't see the distinction that clearly. So that's my 2 cents. And I'd love to engage with you on it, Robin, because it's interesting and intriguing, but I just am stuck on how, you know, is it a big change, or is it just kind of, you know, thinking more in a coalition or a network or a collaborative way of how we deal with issues? That's all.
Yeah. I don't know where I'm going here. Thank you, Pam. I agree. So yeah, if we were not clear with respect to the Abundant 3.0 model, simply having that be a revenue-based system for that project does not necessarily mean moving out of a nonprofit structure. And it really is a topical brainstorming conversation that we'd like to be having on how to move forward with AERO. As the difficulty is, as I said, it's a small staff, and what I don't think I was very clear in my communication that it's been a struggle financially for us, not only this year, but for a number of years previously. that I think everyone's aware of. And
Forever. It's always been a struggle.
yeah, and the question is whether that's whether there's an opportunity to just think about not releasing the nonprofit, but maybe being more flexible or just thinking differently about how do we best carry out that legacy? Because in some ways, the commitment to that independent membership driven model can impact, it feels to me like the effort to keep that going can impact our capacity to have the broader, larger impact that we could have. And I don't have an answer really. And I don't feel like it's for us to determine that, but it is an opportunity for our membership to discuss it. And we want to invite that conversation. This is the beginning. This is the invitation to have that conversation. We'll continue it at the annual meeting. And it's not like there has to be a decision made now, but it will inform how we choose to move forward long term.
If you think of AERO as a catalyst that's starting lots of things, you sort of need some people at the center of the catalyst who are sort of knitting the sweater and helping start things. And so it could be a nonprofit because that's what you have, and you really change how you think about your work and what you hold on to. I mean, I just think if we've catalyzed so much, and that's what we do, and then they move on.
Yep.
Robin, I wonder if I could say a little bit more about kind of the context of the discussion. And it's been a really, really tough time since I've come into AERO. Started as ED with Jen, and we haven't had the funding to hold the co-ED model that we had hoped for. And that really made capacity a huge challenge. And Robin's come in as almost entirely volunteer. And I just think it's really important for people to know that we've had to make hard decisions in the last 18 months since I've been on about what we're even able to do. And that's why we're talking about the organizational structure right now, because we're talking, does AERO need to continue? And if so, how and in what form? Because those are the kinds of decisions and conversations we've been having over the last 18 months. So
Thanks.
That's why we're having the conversation.
So Lindsay, are you having, I mean, who are you having them with? I know the board is engaged and these partners are engaged, but I sense that we're missing the membership, and I'm not faulting leadership, I'm faulting the members. You know, are we committed? I've read the newsletter and the blog, but I haven't really read them. I haven't gone back and really, I couldn't tell, somebody said, what's AERO up to? I could say, well, I just read the newsletter and there's this, and this, and it's really cool. And I would challenge us to encounter some of our, you know, I don't know if we're 300 or 500 members who are just not listening. It's part of it's the moment. I mean, everybody's bombarded with social media and stuff to read, but at some point an organization has to have the discipline to show up. And I think, you know, we can't expect our low membership to fund the organization completely.
Yes.
But I do expect them to show up at a you know, at a pint night and give us their opinion. And I worry about that. I guess us old people worry about that stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I want to hear from the membership now. What is the future of AERO? Are we merging with someone? Are we honing our mission down to something we have capacity to do well?
I hear the invitation to be in this question. I don't think we can answer it briefly today, but I think we have to get in. You know, I think it's a big question. We need to sit around the table and engage around. And you know, maybe that's the next step, is to convene a listening circle in every community to engage engage with this question with you guys and the board, maybe. I don't know. That's one thought.
It's a hard one to answer or help you with without knowing your budget and where you are. I mean, this has just been an awful year, I'm sure. It's just been.
From the grassroots in the early sessions, I really felt good. The couple of beef raisers and whatever the complexity of business these days and all the rest of it. And my imagination just had me feeling that an organization like AERO could get a handle on some of this, could be a kind of a center clearinghouse to help work on some of these projects for our little producers, and that energy itself is kind of worn out at this point. And that AERO really needs a new mission. And of course, my bias would be that that would be kind of urban agriculture or smaller agriculture or whatever we want to call it. It's not big ag in the States. So that's what I think is a lot of opportunity to just grab a handle on helping people.
And that could be part community.
I don't know if I even got up there. I didn't see myself.
Yeah, we heard it.
I think they have to let you in. I don't
We
know.
heard you, Ken. Need to hear from other people. A lot of us are doing all the talking.
Yeah, that's the trouble, is not having it store up and not having a forum for, there's a tendency in the state that I found that I really find aggravating, and that's to shut people off. I think we need to listen, within reason to everybody, and that these cliques need to be broken down so that we get more input. I can think of dozens of people I know in our community that don't show up for anything, that have legitimate issues.
Yeah. So we just have a couple more minutes, and I wanted to give an invitation for anybody to communicate, and if you'd rather to do that privately, you're welcome to. I do want to invite consideration about possibilities from a place of opportunity and not a place of scarcity. And to consider again this idea of the highest and best use of the legacy without attachment to form. So just keep that in your mind as you go through the rest of your day. We invite you to the annual meeting. This is the start of a conversation. We will work this out together. Having now presented this idea, we'll have follow-on meetings, and we'll figure out a way to have the conversation that works for us in these times. So thanks for letting us reach out to you and start the conversation this way. And I just want to close us out with some opportunity.
You haven't.
Go ahead.
Sorry, but you haven't. You're talking about the annual meeting, which I believe is tomorrow. But there's something at 3 to 4:30 today, and you haven't mentioned that at all. That I was kind of planning to go to.
Oh, I apologize. So I apologize. That is I don't know if I can. That's a session. It's another listening session on AERO as it relates to renewable energy systems in the state of Montana and alternative energies and the role that for AERO in today's landscape there. So that's 3 to 4:30 today on the Zoom link. That would have been good to include. My apologies.
Oh, that's okay. You just did, so it's all right.
And a reminder that the annual meeting is tomorrow, December 6th, from 1 to 2:30. And I just wanted to invite us as we close out to just, if you would be open to it, a popcorning of 3 words that describe what you're leaving with today and how you feel right now. So just an expression of how this has landed with you and what you're leaving with.
I'll go real quick. 3 words that come to mind for me are connection, knowledge, and curiosity. Connection to each of you and seeing your faces or hearing from you. New knowledge about what AERO's up to and thinking about for the future, and then curiosity about, again, the future and wanting to be part of the conversation.
Thanks, Galina.
She said what I'd say.
Okay. Demetrius, can I call on you?
Perhaps. um, somebody else has got a burning desire. Holler out, because I'd stumble through this right now.
Figuring out the future. That's 4 words.
Okay, thank you.
I think we should welcome change, and along with that are growing pains. And judging as an old geezer, I think we're really, really gifted with the number of young people that I know that I've met in the last 3 years, and their talents and their energy. And so we need to try to direct that in practical ways.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Anyone else? 3 words, just to close us out.
This is Kate. I would say AERO Youth Forum, that Lindsay should lead something and no one over a certain age should be allowed in the room, and they should talk about AERO's future.
I think for me, Robin, the 3 words would be collaboration, communication, and opportunity. I see, AERO has always been a wonderful convener with a fantastic community of people. And so I feel good to plug back in. It's been a couple of years since I've engaged with AERO. So I'm excited to be back in this conversation.
Excellent. All right, one more.
I'll say something. Need board members. Well, following up on former board member Demetrius's comments.
Okay. Well, we've gone past our 12:30 time. I'm going to give one more opportunity. Anybody want to close this out?
Thank you for doing this.
Good job, you guys.
All right.
Yeah, great,
Everyone,
great
please
to be here.
Nice to see
Thank
your
you.
faces.
That's great. Please join us for the afternoon session, 3 to 4:30.
See you then.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Robin.